Cayetano le ha puesto.
Es el nombre de mi abuelo.
Y yo también me llamo Cayetano.
And it's my name too, who would have thought? Given The Coffee Table is a movie with very dark subject matter, I have to enforce a spoiler warning, as pretty much any info given on this will defeat the point of watching it. I usually don't do that, it should be obvious, but in this case, you really want to watch this without knowing anything. That being said, it isn't exactly a pleasant watch, so this video may be all you need. Given you found a subversion earlier in the Spanish language, The Coffee Table is one of those uncomfortable movies. The plot focuses on a married couple, Jesus and Maria, who begrudgingly purchase a tacky coffee table. And a tragic mistake leads to their newborn baby being undoubtedly dead, the coffee table partly to blame. The following is an emotional roller coaster depicting what is probably a parent's worst nightmare, and it's done to great effect. You can really feel the emotions, the tragedy, the despair, and I'll tell you, it's not the most pleasant movie. But in this case, that's the idea. You won't likely watch it again, but the first time viewing is an experience. Given it's a movie about a dead baby, it could so easily come across as mean-spirited or overly dark, kind of like Irreversible, which is a disgusting movie, the definition of how not to do this. But The Coffee Table understands the genre, doesn't abuse it, and gets the right reaction out of the viewer. I mean, just look at the first scene, it's not discreet. That being a sleazy salesman trying to sell them the aforementioned tacky coffee table, and you really gotta love how blatantly of a liar he is. Stating it's indestructible and that he would buy it if he could, even claiming to share the baby's name, which isn't confirmed to be a lie, but we know it's a lie. And even the couple, Jesus and Maria, have no issue stating their opinions outright. Maria actively calls the salesman a liar, insulting her husband for believing it, and Jesus complains about not being able to pick anything in their apartment, and that they're too old to even have a baby. What I like about this is, it gives you the feeling the salesman knows he'll buy it, no matter what he says.
Le aportará felicidad.
Tratar bien una mesita, a ver.
Which is exactly what happens. Upon his wife walking out, he admits that he was lying about most of it. After Jesus says he would buy it on principle, it's another intro that sets the perfect tone, you know exactly what kind of couple this is. And even though buying something out of spite is wrong, it's explained that everything in their apartment she chose, so you can kind of take his side. Maybe not completely, but given he's going to be focused on the most, it is the way it should be. If he was completely unlikable, that wouldn't work, but the combination of being sympathetic and not completely wanting the baby, though still clearly loving it, is a good balance. That said, if one thing does kind of push the envelope of not being needed, it's his 13-year-old neighbor Ruth who claims they're in love. Yeah, technically it does affect the plot toward the end, but they could have probably gotten there without this. It's again not confirmed if he did anything or not. I don't think he did. All the accusations she makes can easily be passed off as something else. She does try threatening him, insisting they're in love and that he can't admit it. But like I said, it does sound like she's just making stuff up, and they wanted to throw in something like this. It's not a big deal, but it does kind of feel irrelevant. Anyhow, the table assembly hits a snag almost immediately, as there's a screw missing. Don't you hate that? And he calls the salesman to ask for another one. I like how again the salesman doesn't really want to do it, Maria clearly noticing. It's overly apparent he only loves it because she doesn't, that mood is handled so well. And when Maria leaves to buy some groceries, in anticipation for his brother Carlos's visit, and his very young partner Christine, the tale takes a drastically dark turn.
Well, that sucks.
Yes, by the means in which we don't actually see, the baby is literally decapitated, as the table is clearly not indestructible. Despite that, we do see the severed head, and again, this is really well done. For some time, he just looks at it in shock, not doing anything. His wife does eventually call him, in which he hangs up, and after regaining his composure, he realizes the best course of action is to clean up. He puts the baby back in the crib, and given the situation, this reaction does look accurate. Technically, the right thing to do would be to not hang up the phone, but realistically, this is the way you might react. I mean, what would you even say? Problem is, there's no cleaning supplies in the house for some reason, so he has to borrow some from Ruth, but only if he agrees to tell Maria about them being in love. Which he does agree to. I don't think he means it. I think he just doesn't care at this point. And one thing that is kind of hard to believe is the excuse that he was just painting. I mean, it's clearly not red paint, and they both assume that's what it is. He cut his hand severely. He could have just said the table broke. That would have made sense, but whatever. And his rush back to clean up is interrupted by the salesman who has a missing screw. He ironically goes on about how the table is not completely indestructible, and insists upon him signing up to win a luxury fan, and when she does, inevitably sign up. Mainly because he won't leave. But upon trying to arrange a date with him, enough is definitely enough. And after finally getting the place mostly clean, he can't bring himself to move the severed head, so he kinda just leaves it. But the incident is not gonna go undiscovered forever, so he does contemplate something YouTube prohibits discussing, but he can't do that either. And upon Maria returning, he still can't say what happened. Of course, the baby has not been decapitated, so before you go look in there, could you please like the video and subscribe down below. I don't know what kind of traction this will get, but YouTube's algorithm does shit nowadays, so sharing the video can definitely help a lot. Also, the gaming channel is there too for similar content with games. Link in the description. So with the decision to lie for the time being, he needs to excuse the blood and the mess somehow, not to mention hanging up the phone, but given the table broke, that's good enough to excuse all that. The shock made him hang up, and Maria becomes a bit overly unlikable. Obviously, she loves that it broke and laughs constantly.
Pero como te la has podido cargar tan rápido. Voy a ver qué cara se te ha puesto.
It almost makes you not even feel bad for her. I get that's the idea, this movie's not that straightforward, but in this case, it goes a bit too far. I mean, it's not that funny. Luckily for him, she believes the baby's just sleeping, and agrees not to disturb him, but I guess his plan at this point is to try and rekindle their relationship, in the hopes that she'll understand when she inevitably finds out.
Te quiero.
That's my assumption, you can't really tell, but in this situation, what else could you do? This is when things get really deep and increasingly hard to watch. As when his brother Carlos and Cristina show up, things constantly happen, to hint at the life they're not gonna have now. Being a gift for the baby's new room full of their old toys, and even a vision of an empty swing seat, all the while Jesus is clearly acting erratic, passing it off as him not feeling good. And despite this taking up a good part of the movie, it never loses your attention. So many things are done to keep your attention, the acting is beyond believable, and to drive the point home, this is what you'd expect to see. We can debate what's right and wrong, you can technically dislike the lead here, but unless you've actually been in this situation, which you probably haven't, you can't really judge. Would you admit to it right away? Maybe. Would you contemplate the forbidden topic? Possibly that too. The point of the movie is to make you think about that, how you would act, in a very unpleasant way, and there's no denying they got that done. I had a few occasions wanted to stop watching, but I knew that I couldn't. Nothing was gonna make that happen, I had to see what was next. And when you sit down to watch a movie like this, luckily this time nobody spoiled it, that is kind of the idea. It just goes to show you don't need big budgets to make quality movies. A bit of a comedic edge is thrown in when they discuss who they love the most. Christine not even putting Carlos in the top 10, but when they announce their pregnancy, well, it doesn't go over too big. He says he doesn't care that he got an 18-year-old pregnant, and when Carlos catches him writing a you-know-what note, he finally tells him what he did.
That's a bit of bad luck right there.
Carlos insists that he can't end it and let her find the baby that way, but this is interrupted as Ruth finally shows up with her dog. Maria tells her to come back later, but she's not having it, and his decision to not clean up the severed head becomes an issue when the dog finds it, and I think you know the rest. Yeah, it's probably worse than finding the body without the head. The time for coming clean is well past. Instead we have complete chaos, soon fading out to intense music. It's extremely effective, and a good payoff if you made it through this. In the end it fades out, but what happened is pretty obvious. When the police come, it's revealed they're both dead, with the baby's head in her arms, and Carlos in a catatonic state, only able to say, the coffee table. I do find it a bit forced that all three of them are in a state in which they can't say anything. I guess that could happen, but still, hell of an ending. This finale, along with the whole movie, is pretty much what it's supposed to be. The type of thing you likely won't come back to, but a second watch isn't really needed. Uncomfortable viewing is the kind of thing the coffee table indulges in, so aside from the brief mention of pedophilia, it never goes beyond what it should. So many times does this not work out, rarely do I say I'd recommend it, and that's because getting it right, not relying on shock value alone, is a concept we don't usually see. But The Coffee Table is a film that knows exactly how to get the most out of it, so given it's free to watch on fucking Tubi, if you can handle its theme, and you're sick to death of the same thing being repurposed, as long as you skip most of the video to avoid spoilers, The Coffee Table is basically a must-see. I'm the Analyst, and remember kids, don't buy cheap shit.